Right, hello wine drinking people. We are back with more of what I've had to drink yesterday, and it seems like we were destined to report to you about the wines of southern Italy on this day because Maurizio De Rosa, the owner of Feudi di San Gregorio, one of the most famous wineries in this area, was in today to see me and show us the whole entire lineup, including his famous Serpico wine, which is made from an ancient vineyard. I couldn't believe the pictures of these vines when he showed them to me. They had the woman that worked in the vineyard standing next to the vine, and it's like twice the size of her standing up. I've never seen grapevines this tall, but Maurizio was a wealth of information. This guy knows everything about the history of this area and the varietals. He was telling us, the lineage of the Pinot Noir varietal and how it came from this area. It came from Syrah, actually. An absolutely fascinating man. If you ever have a chance to go to this part of Italy, I highly recommend you go to visit this winery. He has agriturismo at his winery. I was just there, and I didn't see Maurizio, but I guarantee you the next time I go back, we'll be having lunch with him at his restaurant, at one of his wineries, and the rest of the stuff in Pompeii. I want to see all those people that were, frozen and in lava. Really a lot of stuff to see. The island of Capri very close by, so you could spend a whole week in this part of Italy. The wine region is a little far from where they pull into the dock, so we had a 2-hour drive to go where we were going. But it was worth the trip. Absolutely fantastic wine. Some of my favorite whites coming from Italy. The first white that we had was the Lacrima Christi, the Tears of Christ. And Code de Volpe is the grape varietal, probably of Greek origin, but he didn't think some of the other grapes that were of Greek origin that a lot of other people, Greco de Tufo, they feel. A lot of people tell you it's of Greek origin, Aglianico. Maurizio had a little different opinion about this, where these grapes came from. But the wine's always good, and the rootstock is from Ohio, of all places. Like I said, Maurizio, just a wealth of information. But they do have some old vines, as I was mentioning, on their own rootstock, over 100 years old. A Falange, which is the name of one of the grapes, so this probably came from the trellising system, the name of the trellises, and they trellis the wines very low here. And this wine, Lacrima Christi, a bit of green herbs and melon to the nose, some green fig, a good amount of minerality here. You get that volcanic soil here, the Mount Vesuvius. And then a very unique wine on the palate with that melon and the lime citrus fruit showing, a host of stone-like minerality. Just an excellent bottle of wine, this 2010 Lacrima Christi. All right, next up, 2011 Greco de Tufo, and Feudi has 4 wineries, and they produce about 4 million bottles of wine. So this is a big producer here. Everything from their own vineyards or from vineyards that they have long-term contracts with. They've got 85% of the fruit is their own, 15% is with these long-term contracts. They founded the winery in the 80s, and they did this to help the area after the earthquake, to help the farmers have a place to sell their grapes to, I guess. The Napoleonic Code is responsible for the fragmentation of ownership in this area also. I guess Napoleon conquered this area and gave it to one of his brothers. But fresh fruit, peaches, some white floral notes, and some chalky mineral notes showing on this Greco de Tufo also. Lovely fresh fruit and really refreshing on the palate. A good amount of minerality to the finish. A really good bottle of white wine at $21. Everything's about $20 in the entry level here. All of the wines are the first 3 about the same price point. The Fiano di Avellino, considered the best of the whites. And a lot of times you will see it priced more, but this wine has some lovely orange blossom floral notes and peach and melon fruit, along with some of that volcanic minerality showing here as well. Very fresh and pretty bouquet. Lovely smooth and creamy texture on the tongue. You get that from the minerals in the wine. Nice amount of ripe fruit, that orange blossom note showing through the finish. An excellent bottle of wine. It looks like 2010, a really good vintage here. 2011, the Rossaroro, which is rosé here. The younger vines of Aglianico, 10 years or younger, they use to make rosé here. And these guys have done a lot of research with clones, and they're even sending these perfected clones to California. Segasio and Trinchero are actually making wines with clones from Feudi. Really pretty bouquet here. Strawberry, raspberry fruit, pretty floral highlights. This wine's got 4 grams of residual sugar, but finish is bone dry, and you notice that earthy minerality nuance to this wine as well in the finish. And the forest of hazelnuts something he pointed out, the hazelnuts have a lot of oil in them. You notice that little nuttiness in all of the whites and some of the other wines there because of that also. Really short but pleasant finish in this rosé. 2011 Rubrato, which this is fresh juice, man. A little older vines, but 100% Aglianico here also. 6 months in oak, a bit more structured. Some blackberry, fruit, licorice spice, some floral highlights. This Aglianico has a little bit of a wild character to it also. And like I said, he doesn't think Aglianico is from Greece. He thinks it was Italian, and it means oily and dark is actually where the name comes from. But this wine has got a lovely smooth berry fruit, nice balance of fresh acidity, and really ripe tannins. An easy drinking wine with that floral and spice note coming through on the finish. Very good. $20. Everything's $20 here. So the rosé was 15. All right, the Feudi de San Gregorio Tarassi. Tarassi, long considered the great red wine of the south here. This is a very good vintage, but not as good as in the north. You know, they get winds from the Mediterranean off of at the North African coast, so the climate is very different in this part of Italy than it is from the north. 2004, a great vintage in Tuscany and in the Piedmont. So a lovely dark earth and spices on the nose, really well endowed, some barnyard notes, some really earthy notes, blackberry, cherry, fruit, and plum. Really nice complexity. You notice the evolution in the bottle. This is 2004 vintage, so we're working on 9 years old here. Law says you have to keep this wine for 1 year minimum in oak, but any kind of oak. So, I mean, they use a lot of chestnut in this part of Italy, and chestnut is very neutral oak, and I guess they have chestnut trees in Italy. So, and then 4 years before release, so they do have to keep this wine a fairly long time. Really smooth and polished now. You notice the complexity of that bottle age, spice, and earthy tones. These wines are from the 1960s. Some of the older vines on the property. Really excellent freshness to this wine still. A big wine, but well balanced and elegant. Most excellent juice, this 04 Aglianico. And then the big boy, the Serpico. These are pre-phylloxera wine. Serpico is the name of the village. This is an IGT, so they're not beholden to any of the DOCG laws. Only 36,000 bottles produced, and only in the best vintages. The first vintage was 96, but 2001 was the year that Parker wrote it up. 98 points, and the wine took off. It had a cult following in Italy, but now it's got a cult following all over the world. And this wine is awesome. Really complex bouquet, dark berry fruit, black spices, earth, espresso notes. Really rich and elegant wine with lovely balance, though, and depth of fruit. Fine tannins and a long finish. This is 2005 vintage, so you do notice a little of the evolution in this wine also, but always one of the top Aglianico-based wines from Irpina. That I've tasted, that, you know, one of the highest rated wines usually from most of the critics as well. This wine is most excellent. And then the two Primitivo wines. Well, Primitivo, a lot of people feel like this is where Zinfandel came from. So Primitivo is a little different. You don't get these, usually they're not as high alcohol, not as extracted as California Zinfandels. And they make two. One of them, which is more classic, more Italian, that's sorted by hand. It's Osignole, which this wine's got a little stronger floral and herbal note, but both of the wines rather light and pleasant in terms of their fruits. Blackberry, blueberry fruit on the Primitivo, and some nice forward, some exotic spice, and like I said, just the one that was more international style, the first one, the Primitivo de Mandura, just a little lighter in the herbal and earthy character for me, but I'm not a big fan of Primitivo, just like I'm not a big fan of Zinfandel, but these wines very good and very balanced. And then how did we forget the Falanghina? One of my favorite wines to say from the south. This is a wine that's got a lot of aromatics to it, very floral and really unique. And a lot of people felt this is the lesser of all the grape varietals here, but man, this 2010 vintage must be very good. One of the best Falanghinas that I've ever had. On the top of the mountain, so you get lovely freshness in this wine. Pretty bouquet of apples, pears, honeysuckle, white flowers, juicy tropical fruit on the palate with that lovely floral and mineral nuance lasting through the zesty finish. An excellent bottle, very good bottle of Falanghina at $16.25, the best value on the table. That is what we had to drink with the folks from Feudi de San Gregorio. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.